All right, welcome back to After Dark on the Field of 68. I'm Jeff Goodman, joined by former Wake star Randolph Childress and Sports Illustrated's Kevin Sweeney. Make sure you subscribe to the Field of 68 on YouTube. We are also live on Twitter and on Sirius XM radio every night. All right, so today, guys, I know, Randolph, you said you haven't read it yet, but you're going to read it first thing tomorrow morning.
I am. I will. I
wrote a lengthy, in-depth piece on Stadium on former NBA players who have been in college as head coaches. And honestly, how underwhelming it was. I gave each of them a grade. There are about 25 current guys. I highlighted about 25 former guys. Obviously, two of the current guys who were tabbed to restore glory to their alma maters, both were in action today. Memphis's Penny Hardaway, they won. They got Tulane. And Georgetown's Patrick Ewing, they did not fare quite as well. Georgetown was right there. They were up at halftime, I think, a point at DePaul. And then the Blue Demons, the Fighting Tony Stubblefields, went on a 26-0 run. So now Georgetown is 0-11 in the Big East. They made the tournament last season with a little bit of luck, let's face it. And I think it's time, RC, to admit that the end of the Patrick Ewing era, like, obviously, I grew up watching Patrick, right? Like, I'm a Big East guy. I grew up watching him, loving him, all of it. But this isn't working. This is not working.
Jeff, it's hard for me to argue that. It's hard for me growing up in DC, being recruited by Big John, having Big John sit in my house. Just knowing what Georgetown represents to so many people. But you got to admit, I don't know how you run this back. I mean, and I don't like saying it for a ton of reasons. I'm cheering for Pat, but
well, you've said, listen, there's nothing wrong with saying for black head coaches, which there haven't been a ton over the last however many years in college basketball.
Yeah.
Like, you're rooting, and we all are, for success, for Patrick Ewing, for Penny Hardaway, for some of these guys. But when you are 0-11 in the Big East, in a job that I still say, and I get pushback in this, is a top 20, 25 job in the country. It is.
I don't know if I agree with that. And I'll say this again. The reason I said is we're going. Sometimes you hold on because we're old enough to hold on to what Georgetown was.
Yes,
and that's what it is. Like, in our mind, knowing what Georgetown is, it's just, it is among the best jobs ever. You think a great city is in DC, but when you start thinking about all the other little things, like what college town is going to fill up an NBA arena? What type of crowd and everything you're going to get? It's a lot of negatives to being a part of Georgetown. So even if you go there for work, like, hell, you got to make $500,000 as an assistant to live. Like, you go to Georgetown, you go way out PG County. That hike getting to Georgetown, good luck with that. Good luck. What
I will say to push back, recruiting base is immense. There's so much talent in that area. The practice facility is insane. It might be as good a practice facility as there is anywhere around the country. Right. There is tradition. There is history, especially with big men. Now, I know when the job was open last time, I talked to a lot of coaches that I thought would be in the mix. They were scared to go there, RC, because of Big John.
Yes.
They were scared. He's intimidating. The word is obviously at that time, and again, the late Big John Thompson was one of the greatest coaches ever, and he was intimidating.
Yes, he was.
They were scared to go there because you want to be able to do what you want to be able to do as a head coach. And I think,
let's call it what it is. No different than what we say about Boeheim, no matter what we say about Bray. Big John was not still coaching, but he still ran Georgetown.
He ran it.
Still ran it. So you had to go.
He picked
interesting thing about he picked Patrick. So now it's. I said this the other day, and I want to get your idea while we're talking about this. We grew up in that time where these he made this program. Like Boeheim, we think of these programs, so they're just a big part of history. I don't know if this will happen anymore. And at some point, with some of these schools, we're going to run out of, like, who follows Boeheim? And now this is it. This is the last Georgetown guy.
Yeah.
Now what happens? Where do you go now?
I hear you. I hear you on all of it. I still go back to recruiting base, resources, practice facility, tradition, big men. It's got most everything. There's still some coaches when you talk to in the Big East that will say, if they had the choice of taking one job in the Big East, they would take Georgetown over Villanova.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I think some of that, the problem you're going to have now is if you come in there after Pat and it's not, the hire is not loved by the John Thompson, let's just say, regime or people. I don't like regime because it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's a negative thing, but and none of those guys buy into the hire. Now what? You taking over a job expecting all this AI. I mean, Lonzo, Mutom. I mean, the list is ridiculous. It's as great as any list we can find. But this generation doesn't know anything about those guys. They don't really know what Georgetown stands for and what it means to us, what we know it has been. And I mean, what do they do?
Sweeney knows Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo and Patrick Ewing and the big men. Like,
I know the history, but I don't associate any of those, like, my first brain with Georgetown.
You showed it with the league, Ewing, right? Like, you go with the league.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I'll ask you this, Jeff. How much of a gap do you think there is between the Maryland job and the Georgetown job if they both open in the same cycle?
Well, I talked to one coach today about that, and a candidate I thought could be in the mix for either or both. And I said, which job would you take? And he said Georgetown without hesitation, without any hesitation. But I think you can go with either one.
Right.
I honestly think it depends on probably what league you want to coach in. At least Georgetown's got a basketball-only league. I think Maryland, you're kind of out of place there in the Big Ten. Here's what I'll say. The next question, and I think it's a more pressing one right now. How do you fire Patrick Ewing? How do you, if you're Lee Reed, the AD, what do you do, RC? How do you handle this if you're Lee Reed? I got an idea.
The best thing he can do is hope Pat walks in his office at the end of the year and just say, hey, it's not working, and I'm going to go back to the NBA. That's the best thing that can happen. If Pat decide, if not, then I think Pat's going to make a decision. And I was having this conversation with some friends of mine, and the only thing I can think they do, and I hate saying this again because I don't want to speak on anybody's job, but something has to change. Like they're going to say, you got to completely change things. Your whole staff, your whole staff has to go, and we're going to get involved in helping you with the staff. And I hate saying that because I know that's like I'm calling for people's jobs, and I know how hard this is. I know how hard the industry is, and it's hard as hell. But I also understand how the other side of it works, and from the business aspect of it, and they're not going to roll this back. And we talked about Penny, and the difference is we can say what we want. Penny got talent. Now, whether it's an issue about it, you can't tell me anybody swapping this Georgetown roster out. You're probably going to take Muhammad, and that's it. Like the rest of this, no disrespect, you're not taking all this talent. This isn't a roster.
Muhammad wouldn't play 15 minutes a game in Memphis. Like compared to the guys,
no, exactly. And he's their most talented player, right? And so
they're different.
So we talk about there are different reasons for why these programs aren't successful. So we would all take the talent and say we can just figure out the other stuff. But 0-12, and we don't even know when they're going to get a next win. I don't think you need to fire him. I don't think you should. I'm a big fan of his, but I do think something has to change. And I'll stand by what I said.
I also think, though, I just want to say time's of the essence, right? Like they need to know, especially if you're going to be in the market for a head coach. Maryland's already doing due diligence, right? They're going to be ready to pounce. And if you're into the market for the same guys, and you're going to be in the market for similar candidates in certain cases because they have guys who have DMV ties, whatever, you better be ready to know what you're going to do, whether it's we're gonna fire him. He's gonna walk away on his own accord. We're gonna make him shake up his staff. You got to be ready to pounce as soon as the season ends and have a plan, because that combined with the portal and how much they're gonna have to be able to do work and get kids in, because like we said, there's not a lot here. I mean, whatever they're going to decide to do, it's got to go.
Sweeney, the other thing I'll say is, though, you got to be really careful. Like, this is as difficult of a situation, as delicate of a situation as there is of any job right now in college athletics, because the perception is this is Chocolate City. Georgetown is supposed to have a black head coach.
That's right.
So I don't care who you go get. You go get a white coach and put him at Georgetown right now. I promise you, people are going to be looking at it like,
remember Craig Esherick?
Yes. It's not supposed to be that way, but that is the perception of Georgetown. Let's just call it what it is. I don't know if there's another job in the country that's not that way, but in the
former players will be pissed.
The Power 5 conference is in that job. This is as difficult of a situation. That's why I don't believe they can do it no matter what. I don't care if Pat doesn't win another game this year. That AD and walking down that hallway telling Patrick Ewing he's gone, because whoever he hires, all that history, all those people are walking out of that door. And then what? Unless you're prepared to start this program over, and I mean from scratch, that's what it's going to take for you to do. Like, this is a hard decision.
Well, I think what you got to do, again, you got to have kind of a come to Jesus meeting. If you're Lee Reed with Patrick Ewing, bring him in.
Yes.
Do you want to do you think, number one is, do you want to keep doing? Number two is, do you think you can turn it? Really think you can turn it?
Yes.
Number three is, all right, if that's the case, we got to make some changes. All right, what are your changes going to be on staff? I love Louis Orr. Louis Orr should be a special assistant to the head coach, just like Jeff Lebo should be at North Carolina. Those dudes you need to be recruiters these days. If I'm a head coach, I'm hiring some young dudes that can go out there and connect with these kids that are younger, that are going to be able to recruit. I love Louis Orr, but that's not what he is anymore. That's what he was 20, 25 years ago. So that's where I'd start. To me, again, the Penny Hardaway, they win tonight. They're getting in talent. They can turn it. They can turn this thing a lot easier than Patrick Ewing. But honestly, if you look at the story I wrote, you will be amazed. And I'm going to give you this before we go to break here in a minute. You're not going to get this answer. Sweeney's already read the story, so he knows the answer to this.
He cheated.
Now, again, minimum 200 games played in the NBA in their careers. So Tony Bennett doesn't qualify for the current guys. I didn't give one A- or A out to all the formers or currents. The highest former, I gave a B+. You want to guess who it was, RC?
I couldn't guess. I couldn't even begin.
We gave 2 B+.
I did. I gave 2. One's
obvious, right? It's Juwan Howard.
Juwan Howard to a current. Current.
Right.
The former was Al Skinner.
Wow.
Did you know he played over 300 games in the NBA?
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
I would have never. And I was just talking about him because the current staff, he had just spoken with Earl Grant and that staff about how he was successful at BC, and they were picking his brain about how to get that culture back up there that he had created. And he was a heck of a coach, obviously, and he did some great things. So
he did
I would have never guessed
things at a really, really difficult place.
Yes.
But amazing of all these guys. And there were different reasons, and I went through all of them. You know, some of it was some guys, and I talked to Bobby Hurley just the other day about this. He said, I had 2 years an assistant coach at Wagner, 1 at URI under my brother before I got a head coach, and I got it at Buffalo. Damon Stoudemire told me ego is a huge thing for former NBA players, that they got to put that ego aside and make it about the players and not themselves. Staff, Fred Hoiberg said, was the most important thing. And that's where I think, Ewing, Stackhouse might have gone in the wrong direction, especially Stackhouse, where Hoiberg inherited TJ Otzelberger on his first staff, hired Bobby Lutz, who had been a longtime former NBA college head coach at Charlotte with some success. So, different reasons, but I think we agree that this Patrick Ewing situation is really difficult for Georgetown to navigate. But ultimately, I don't know how it turns and we get Georgetown back to what it was I don't even care what it was. Just get to the tournament 3 out of every 4 years at this point. That's what Georgetown should be. And 0-11 in the Big East is not what anybody thought Hoya Paranoia was going to turn into right now under Patrick Ewing, the head coach.
I'm not sure a better job in the Big East, right? I think it's fair to say it's the best job in the Big East. I mean, is there a better job?
I mean, Villanova people, the problem people have is they tend to look at success or lack of success recent. So people are trying to tell me, Providence fans, Providence is a better job than Georgetown. There's no way in hell that's the case. No chance. But they think because Ed Cooley's done a better job than Patrick Ewing, it's a better job. There's a big, big difference. All right.
Yes.
When we come back, Field of 68 After Dark, we are going to play a game called Fraud or For Real, in which Sweeney is going to go out on a limb here and tell me whether Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans are frauds or not. So stick with us after the break.
Clear, 90 seconds.
All right.
Goodman's elite with the teases.
I don't know about that. But all right, what do we got for some questions in the chat here? Who do you think Georgetown would target for potential for a head coach?
Again, I don't see how they move
there
past them. Yeah, I mean, because I can't see it. I just don't see how they make that. I think the first thing would be clean house, change your staff, or something of that nature. I just don't see Pat. I think they'll give him a chance.
Is giving him is a new staff to a 2-year deal, right? I mean, a new staff's not going to fix this for next year. They don't have players.
But it could
even if they go to the portal.
Because the portal. It could be.
Right, but even with the portal, I mean, they'd have to get. I mean, they would need Alondas Williams and Jake LaRavia to fix this. I mean,
but at least you would know if it trends in that direction.
Right. That's
it
fair.
Says, okay, this is
one more year.
I like where we're going. Yes,
right, Pat. Here's the deal. We're going to give you one more year if you want it. You got to change your staff,
30.
and let's see if we make real progress or not. If you're at the bottom of the Big East again next year, then all right, we'll all agree to do this again and go our separate ways. I think that's what you need to do here.
Yeah.
You need to give him kind of that year ahead of time.